I can hardly contain it. My heart is going to leap out of my chest because our guest today is one of the reasons our little story was able to leave room 203 at Wilson High in Long Beach, California, to the big screen, to the world. And that is because our guest today, Danny DeVito, was one of the executive producers of the Freedom Writers film. So he's family. And so this is going to be like a family chat. Since none of us can see our family during COVID-19, we're going to have a nice family chat tonight. So Danny, would you say hello to all of these teachers in 70 countries?
Hi, everybody. It's Danny. I'm in California, and I hope you're all well and safe and, you know, uh, taking care of yourselves. You
Well,
know,
I need to tell our listeners and our watchers
Mhm.
that your dear friend Tony Diaz has said that you are much hipper than folks would imagine because you're like, you've got this COVID-19 down. You're on Zoom every day,
All the time.
chatting with friends and colleagues. So
Mhm.
how have you acclimated to the coronavirus and
Well, I
lockdown?
mean, the thing about it is, it hit us like a ton of bricks, didn't it? It came out of, out of the blue. And I think when it was the beginning of March, I guess, when I first got wind of the whole thing, like everybody else. I don't remember the date, but I know that I've been safe, taking care of myself, doing everything Fauci had to say. Even though he was like, seemed like he was a little bit under wraps in the very beginning when he started talking about it. But I took it very seriously, and I did a lot of you know, so, I mean, totally social, basically big time went into my computer. Now this is how been communicating for the past how many
Forever.
months? Yeah,
The better
forever. It
part of
seems like
forever.
forever. So, but I did take it very seriously. I didn't, I started doing a lot of ordering out, like getting, not going. I went to the grocery store a couple of times in the very beginning, masked up to the nines, and then just stopped going. Then I started just, do a lot of takeout food, and I cook a lot of pasta. That's big.
Well, that's for
Yeah,
any good Italian.
yeah,
I think for those that know you, myself
yeah.
included, I think what's probably hard for you is you're such an empath and affectionate. Like when I see you, I just want to give you a huge hug. So I think
Yeah.
it's probably the hardest and the strangest
Well, for
not to be
everybody,
able.
I think everybody's going through it, where you miss, I mean, some people are more extreme than others where you actually, unfortunately lost loved ones who they couldn't be with in the moments that they were so precious, the last few. But I mean, I do miss, being with people. It's like I'm fortunate that my kids live nearby, and we get to see each other. In a little family get together every once in a while. Um, but we've been very, very, the only thing is you get an elbow hug,
Yeah.
and that was it, and everybody's staying away from each other. And being Italian, I mean, all you do is kiss each other. It's just like one of those things. You hug and kiss all your relatives and your friends and everybody when they see each other. And now it's just like something that we've got to, right now anyway, until we can get a hold of it, be very, restrained about that, the whole thing. But
Well,
like
when
I
the
said,
world
I'm
is
really, yeah, fortunate because they were all, I got to see them, and a couple of friends have come like lately, like in the yard, that kind of thing, where you're just able to be, masked up and 6 feet away from each other or whatever it is.
well, when the world is right, we will hug,
We'll get together.
kiss,
We'll do a lot
and
of hugging and kissing.
I
Okay.
would love that. Well, what I thought we would do tonight is everyone has had to reinvent themselves
Hmm.
in this pandemic, and so I wanted to talk about your career,
Hmm.
how our worlds have intercepted, and how you and I are both trying to make the world a better place in our own small ways. For
Yeah.
you, sometimes it's a giant way. But I've been dealing with a lot of students in the coronavirus. And
Hmm.
one of the things I loved when I was researching your past is growing up in Asbury Park, New
Mhm.
Jersey. It was the Asbury Park of Bruce Springsteen's days. I know he's a couple years younger
It was
than you.
actually before Bruce Springsteen's day.
I know,
Because I
plus or
left,
minus 5 years.
I was like 18. I left Asbury to go to New York to study acting, and I'm 19. And he was he was, just beginning at the time to play the various clubs and all the, everybody knows the Stone Pony and all this history of Bruce. And so we kind of like, because he's born in Freehold, New Jersey. I'm born in Asbury, but his first album had to be called Greetings from Asbury,
Yes.
because you can't call, Greetings from Freehold. It didn't have a nice ring to it. So I think,
Well, I know that Asbury has been gentrified. It has changed over the
yeah,
years, but I think what harkened back to that point for me was you had mentioned that that it was gritty.
yeah, it was a
That
great place. It was a
there
great
was
place to grow up. It was like a shore town, Jersey Shore. It was the Asbury's history is really interesting, because if you look at the map, if you look at Atlantic City, south, farther south, right in Jersey. That was where the steel pier was. They called it, and years and years ago, they had all the amusements, and they had nightclubs, and they had all kinds of. Just before my time, before I was born, they had, there was all kinds of, when Prohibition, and there was like a big, kind of like a very hot town, but it was about uh, um, uh, to get to New York from Atlantic City was the fun town. So it was way too far. So Asbury Park is about midway on the shore, on the Jersey Shore. So if you were driving or you were making your way down to Atlantic City, you needed something. In those days, the roads were really terrible and like just awful travel. And probably who knows how fast the cars went, whatever it was. But the story was that that's the way Asbury really came up, because it was a midway point, and then they got wind of the fact that people were doing that. It's a very beautiful area. There are like there are little lakes all around and down the shore there and the beach is beautiful, and it became like a real jewel on the Jersey Shore, and and that's how it came up. Then my father was born in Brooklyn. My grandparents are all from Italy, but my mother's father also came from Italy. He went down the Jersey Shore. Down there was a big department store in Asbury, uh, that he was a tailor. So he had a little tailor shop in Asbury, but he also worked in this big department store where they did suits for all the hoi polloi or whatever. And he was a fine tailor. And so my father came down in the, I guess when he was in the 30s, and and that's when he met my mom, who was born down there in Asbury. And they got, and then later on, they had 5 kids, and I was the last one. So, you know.
I appreciate that you went backwards, because I think that when I think about you, you're all about roots and family. When I met you, Jersey Films was your
Mhm,
production company.
mhm,
So you're always giving a shout out to your roots, and your friendships are long lasting.
yes.
When I think about all the television shows and movies that you have worked on for years,
Mhm,
those are your longest friendships. So I'd love to kind of explore that.
sure.
And I will keep going back to your roots, because I think for the Freedom Riders, it's all about our roots and also family. So I think that's why we're a perfect fit. One of the first movies that you did was actually apprising a role that you had done off Broadway, Martini. In
Mhm.
my favorite book I read in college, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And what was that like to reprise that role that you'd done in a play in
Right.
a major motion picture?
Yeah. Well, I was really lucky to get the part. First of all, the off Broadway play was done in, like, I think it was 1970 71, 70 ish. like what happened to that play, which was written by Dale Wasserman, and it was from Ken Kesey's book, and uh, the book was purchased years ago by Kirk Douglas. This is a story people may know. I don't know if they know, but in the '60s, he commissioned Dale Wasserman to write the play. The play was done on Broadway with Kirk Douglas playing McMurphy on on Broadway, and but it was before its time basically because um, it wasn't well received. They didn't feel like it was true or right. Something was not clicking, and for a while it just sat dormant. And then the book started catching on, and all the college students started reading the book and started getting into Kesey's work. And then in around 1969, 70, a couple guys in San Francisco revitalized the play, the Dale Wasserman play. Rudy Golan and Lee Sankiewicz, they did this in up north, and it was a hit with all young people came see flocked to see the play, and then they brought it to New York, and I was just it was a win, like a real fluke, the way things happen in life are, you never know when that opportunity is going to come for you, especially as an actor or writer, any writer. I mean, whatever. Somebody said to me they're casting this play on 72nd Street. They're not. They're just doing the casting up there, and they can't find one part. This one part. Everything was cast except for this one role. And I went up. I had no idea. I hadn't read the book. I had no idea what was going on except that you know, Martini was, I read this script as part of the script, and I started playing around with it, and I got the part. I was very fortunate to get the role, and then that was off Broadway. We ran for a while, and I was able to create with Kesey's book, but I was able to work on the part really, you know, details, little things, idiosyncrasy, little movements, things that Martini did that I felt like all had justifiable. They were all motivations, all causes and effect in his head, what was going on. And then when they decided to make the movie, again, I got very fortunate to meet Milos, and also Michael was the producer. Michael Douglas was the producer of that, and we had known each other in the theater. We met at the Eugene O'Neill Foundation up in Connecticut, doing summer theater, and so so all good stuff, but it's very, kind of when things really, you bump into something and you don't know what
Like
it is.
accidentally on purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like really it's kind of like a really cool thing.
Well, I brought that up because that film has really hit a soft spot for freedom writers and freedom writer teachers because we live in that lane of talking about mental health parity and trying to get rid of stigmas and stereotypes. And I think with COVID and the pandemic, that's something that's really dear to us is looking at how oftentimes people are stigmatized or vilified. And I think your film did such a phenomenal job of allowing something that's often in the corners and in the shadows into our homes, to our dinner tables, to have those discussions. So it's a film that has had a resurgence, I think, during the pandemic, and having those really incredible conversations, I think, are really important.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting that. Well, I always found. Well, I did, of course, once uh, after I auditioned, I read the book. It was a terrific book. Uh, the play was really well done, well written, and that was like uh, a testament to like the way he put it together, the way Dale Wasserman put that together, um, because in the theater, it's really this is just an actor story. I understand what you're saying about illuminating, shining a light on people who are in certain situations and making them more accessible and in the conversation. But with the Cuckoo's Nest, one of the things I noticed, I've done a lot of theater, and there's sometimes there's good nights, and sometimes you're just off. Just you can everybody feels it. The audience sometimes less, but you can tell with that play it was foolproof.
Mm,
You could we could be off. Everybody in backstage, you go, it was a kind of a weird night. I felt really weird. But the audience reaction to that play when in circumstances what happened in the play, I don't want to spoil for anybody, but but that always got like just touched everybody. So
mm,
that relationship of the chief and Randall
mm.
McMurphy always like just totally wrenched into the hearts and minds of the audience. So
I know that your co-star, Jack Nicholson,
yes, also from New Jersey,
amazing.
born like in the same hospital. We didn't know each other. It was like a really cool thing because my sister's a hairdresser, so I did that too. I worked with her, but that's a whole other story. But the idea is that his family, that he's had, his mom and his sister, and people in his family were in the also in the hair trade and the business. They did hair. They all knew each other.
Wow.
So
A small,
I
small world.
yeah, when I was a kid, I used to hear, he's a little bit older than I am, but I used to hear about this guy, this very handsome guy who went to California to become an actor. And then as things happen, like I say, like you never know. Well, next thing you know, we're in Salem, Oregon, doing a movie together, and it was like, and you know how family and friends are when you get apart, when anytime you're in anything, the phones light up. That the Jersey Shore lit up when the two of us worked together back in 1975
I love
or
it.
four or whatever it was. Yeah.
Kind of a fun tidbit is after I had met Richard LaGravenese, who was working with you, and this idea of a teacher in a classroom was going to become a film. I was terrified. Not something that I'm used to, or it's not normal to me. My father, on the other hand, was giddy, and he was my best friend, and I would literally get a call every day. Danny, my dad would call, and it would go like this. So I was thinking that maybe Jack Nicholson should play me in the film. And I'd say, Dad, we don't have that kind of budget. It's not that kind of film. The very next day, the phone would ring, and my dad would say, I think that Robert Redford should play me. And it was literally the A-list, most
Yeah.
handsome
Yeah.
actors, all Academy Award winners.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. Good for him.
good for
Yeah.
Tragically, though, my dad passed away before the film was a reality. So it's hard because there's this beautiful homage to
Hmm.
my character and my father in the film, but it's very difficult because my dad never got to actually see the
Oh,
film.
never
So
got to
it's
see it, but he got to experience
ah,
the joy of what you
absolutely,
do and everything and celebrate that. And
absolutely.
that's really important. And like right now, we'll vibe it up to him. See wherever he
Yeah.
is
Oh,
in heaven. We'll
I'm
just
wearing the
say
pearls
hi.
he gave me in his honor. So and that's it's weird because I read Ken Kesey in college. I'm an English major, and I know my tenses, but I find that when I talk about my dad to students, I always talk about my dad as an is. I'm
Yeah,
not ready to refer to him as a was.
yeah.
So
No,
he's
he
very
he
much a
was.
part of this right now.
It's like the thing about like keeping I have my parents are gone and I lost two sisters a year or two ago, and the great thing about the where you keep them, they're always there, right here in the higher, just buzzing around. I feel like they're elevated. They're with me, whenever I think of them, they're always, present. They're very much present. So I feel, I wish like I wish I could give you a hug. I wish I could give
Oh,
them a
I'm
hug. You know what I'm saying?
going to cash
Yeah.
that in when COVID is over.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
And I think one of the beautiful things that Freedom Riders were able to help me is, they had been grieving of loss, and they came up with this buzz phrase of, family is what we make, and family is what we choose. And to this very day, Danny, my family is those beautiful Freedom Riders. We are still very much a part of each other's lives. There's a group of about 2 dozen of them going back to college again as a cohort. So we are
Oh,
very
that's great.
connected.
That
And
is great. That is great.
the most beautiful thing is that when the pandemic hit, there was this thought that kids are really suffering. There's
Yes.
going to be a divide economically and digitally, and how do we do something? So
Yeah.
I wanted to show you something I'm really proud of. We
Okay.
One of the young men that I brought to your house when we had dinner at your house while they were making the movie, Tony, was obsessed with you for many reasons. He
Mhm.
wanted to be a filmmaker, and the movie that had come out that you produced his freshman year was Pulp Fiction. So everything was about you and Pulp Fiction. And so when I took him to your house, I don't think he spoke a word. He was so starstruck. But what I love about Tony is when we first got hit with the pandemic, we put out a call to Freedom Riders and we said, we're on lockdown. The office is going to be like a speakeasy. So we're going to lather you up with Purell, stick you in front of a camera,
Mhm.
look at the camera, look at kids, and be candid. And so we came up with all of these themes that we thought would be relevant. And Tony's theme was hope, but it was really hearkening hopelessness, because Tony has suffered from depression, and he thought,
Mhm.
I don't want to bullshit a kid. So if
Mhm.
I'm going to look right at the camera, I want to evoke back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the realness of what mental health is. And so Tony was one of our first Freedom Riders who did it. And then 3 dozen came in and made these incredible videos for kids, and we gave it away for free. We ended up giving it away for free, and 70 countries signed up. And
Mhm.
there were these beautiful little tidbits of
Mhm.
how do we come together when the world is not right, when the world is not normal. So can I show you this
Oh, I
sweet
love
little,
to
it's like a
see it. Yeah,
minute.
absolutely.
It's beautiful though. And this is Tony
Okay.
talking about being able to overcome adversity.
Hope is the promise that tomorrow might be a little better than today. I have a saying that's kind of been my mantra since I was 16: alive at midnight. Having depression and having the life that I've had, sometimes you have really bad days, and I would always tell myself, just be alive at midnight. Just stay alive until midnight, because at 12:01 it's tomorrow. And tomorrow has the hope and the possibility that it might be a better day. It might still suck, but at least there's that hope that it might be okay. That's what hope means to me.
That's terrific.
Oh, isn't that
That's great.
beautiful?
Yeah.
So,
Well, it was really interesting that um, I, my mother used to say, "Non più scorre della mezzanotte." She'd always say, "Non più scorre della mezzanotte," which means it never gets darker than midnight.
mm.
And so I think it's like what Tony said really hit me. I think it was really beautiful.
And so
Uh,
I find myself every day, we are working with kids, and I sit at my computer like everyone, and I just weep because the freedom writers bare their soul. It allows others to bear witness, and then it
yeah,
gets kids the courage to write as well, and
yeah.
write stories, and to think about their own happy ending if they can envision that. So I think that what's amazing is most people think of you as comedic, but there's
Hmm.
this tender side of you that that when I see you, I get a little emotional because I know you are that amazing father and that loving family man. And so the kinds of films that you gravitate to are all over the map, from comedies to
Hmm.
drama. Always Sunny in Philadelphia is going to be starting its 15th season, which I think is the longest running comedic show on television, which is amazing. So how do you choose what's the next show, the
Well,
next production?
yeah, it's it's something that I've been blessed with the opportunity to like when Taxi came along. I'd already done Cuckoo's Nest. Um, that was a gift as well. Like they're all like little gems that were given, that showered, you know, I bumped into Taxi like in a kind of an odd way as well. And same thing, like just a chance somebody said do this, do that, and you go out and you put your best foot forward or whatever you try to do to, and you have to be active about it. You have to go out. You have to, make that commitment. They take that step off of that ledge into the abyss, not knowing what, you know. And I feel like that I've always had that thing where I went with how I felt first, what hit me in my gut. Like I'll read a script and okay, you're an actor, you're always looking for work, so that was the big thing, and things come along, but what chooses you to like direct a movie like Throw Mama, or on the other hand Matilda, and on the other hand War of the Roses. So it's like when you read something that somebody's written, like you read like in the like the War of the Roses, I was working with Michael Leeson on we were pitching, like sitting in a room just pitching some idea he had, trying to break a story, that kind of thing. That's what you do. You chew the fat, you send it around. Somebody's got an idea, and we were getting frustrated. We were working on like a week or so, and we had good times together. We used to eat rice cakes and whatever. I'd bring some figs or some nuts or whatever. And I said one day, let's get out of here. Let's go to a restaurant. You drive. I'll buy the lunch, and we'll just mix it up a little bit. I got in the car, and his car was cluttered. It was just full of like all kinds of like stuff. I said, Michael, this is like, he had a real old car. It was a really nice car, but I had paper in there and things, pens and stuff. It was just like you couldn't believe it. And I had something on my under my foot. I didn't know what it was. It was like it was. I didn't. I like to have my feet on the ground in a car. It was just kicking it. So I picked it up, and it was a screenplay, and my footprint was on it. And I looked at it,
Accidentally on purpose.
and I read it. I said, "The War of the Roses." I said, "Michael, didn't you guys make this movie? I might have missed it. Did you wrote this, right?" He said, "Yeah, I wrote it. It was a Warren Adler's book, and I adapted it." And I said, "You mind if I take it away? I'm going away this weekend." And I took it away and I read it. And I loved it so much that, okay, so I've done like comedies and this and that and the other. This is a comedy about like, two people who, couldn't live together anymore. So it happens in life, you know. So why? I don't know. It's same thing with my kids brought in Roald Dahl's book, Matilda. We were reading picture books up until then. They were like, just starting to read chapter books at night, where you sit and go from chapter to chapter. And they brought Matilda in, and I never heard of, I never knew, And then later on, I got turned on to Roald Dahl, and I read a lot of his stuff. And
But Matilda, you starred in it, you directed it, and you produced it. I
yeah,
mean, it was really
yeah,
your
but I found it because it wasn't like I went out and said, "Oh, I'm gonna go find a really cool kids movie now and make it." My kids brought it in and it was there, and I said, and we read it, and I said, "Oh my, this maybe make a damn good movie. Can I see if I can generate some?" And it was already in the. There were people thinking about it. It wasn't like I was the first one to have the idea to make it because, Roald Dahl is Roald Dahl. He's like amazing, amazing writer, and so. But how some things are like I don't know what it does, but I go with the gut if I feel like that, and then I say, and then after a while, you have to like kind of think about it a little bit. You can't just
like
feel your way through it.
I love that you span every generation. As we were preparing for you to be with us today, I meet with pilot students. I have a middle school program and a high school program and a college program.
Mhm.
And so we wanted to invite all the kids to watch tonight. And so we wanted to find Danny DeVito films and television that was age appropriate for our different audiences.
Mhm.
So we love the fact that this is from our peanut gallery. We love the fact that you were the voice in the Lorax. That
Yeah,
was a big crowd pleaser
we
with the
could
middle
agree.
school kids.
Yeah.
We loved that you were with your friend James Brooks, the voice of Homer Simpson's stepbrother or half brother
Verb.
in The
Yeah.
Simpsons. They
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
We love that everybody wanted to get a little piece of Dumbo and Matilda. And we had to end our movie montage with Always Sunny. We had to find an
Sure.
age specific Always Sunny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
They're in there somewhere. You
they
gotta,
are.
you
We
gotta
found
look.
one.
Yeah.
I think we used the one that probably wasn't age appropriate. It was when you had the knife and you were cutting your finger off. That was what we showed these middle school kids. So
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sure some kids are traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But in the midst of one of these Zooms, it was hysterical. A middle school girl runs out of the camera range for a moment, comes back, and she has a Danny DeVito pillow. I don't know if you realize that your face is on a
Yeah.
pillow in some little girl's house in Los Angeles.
Very honored to be there.
And we also were sent apparently there's a Danny DeVito shrine
Hmm.
in some bathroom in a
In a
nefarious place.
college. Yeah.
Have you seen the shrine?
I've heard about that. Yeah. I've not visited, but I've heard about it. It's behind a cabinet. There was a big hole in the wall, and
Yeah, they have
yeah,
to literally
they
take
go
a
through
part of the
there.
wall out, and
Yeah.
it was
But
hysterical.
it's really very flattering. I love it. I love all the, you know, all the various things. There was a cardboard cutout that somebody took once to a prom. That was really sweet, I thought, and lots of cool stuff. Various rum ham things and tattoos and whatever. It's really good. I'm really pleased to make my fans make me feel good.
Well, the
You give a
wonderful
lot
thing,
back.
they do have your back, and we told all these wonderful kids this week. We want you to come and watch Danny, but also bring your parents. So what was exciting is we got some wonderful questions from some of their parents and some teachers. And one of our teachers and his son, he and his husband were recently married,
Right?
and their beautiful son has been really inspired by the social protest. And his father wanted us to know that he was a social worker before. He
Hmm.
watched Renaissance Man.
Hmm.
And because of your film, he decided to be a teacher, and he's never looked back.
Oh,
And
that's
that is
good.
my dear teacher friend Manuel.
Penny Marshall directed that.
Amazing. So you've always had a soft spot for doing good. When you choose projects where you can pay it forward, what does that feel like for you as an actor, director, producer who then can
Well,
pay it forward for a cause?
yeah, absolutely. I feel really. It's a good feeling to have a reason behind. Like for instance, in the early days, I did Sesame Street because I used to sit there with my kids and watch Sesame Street in the morning before, early morning with a bowl of cereal, and then uh, my Lucy, my first born daughter, my oldest kid, she she was into My Little Pony. So I did a voice I had the opportunity to do a voice in a movie about My Little Pony. So it's really cool, like when you can do something like that. When a Dr. Seuss uh, project comes along, I mean, how are you going to not? I mean, you just run to go do that. I have a good story about that, and not maybe not too many people know this, but I usually in the movies there's a person who always does your voice, say in Italian. Like when the movie's shown in Italy,
They
there's
dub.
a guy. or in, Germany or in France or, and so I won with the Lorax. I have a friend who's born in Germany, and I said, "What do you think it would be like if you think I could learn this, and if you wrote it out for me phonetically, and we did it all, like if I could make sense of it?" And I tried it. I did the Lorax in two different kinds of Spanish. One, I did it in Russian. I did it in German and Italian. So I was lucky enough to go to the Russian premiere in Moscow and actually see part of the movie. I didn't stay for the whole movie. I watched it like with um, Russian fans,
Wow.
with me speaking, and they tell me I have an accent.
What? Well, I do. I have to let you in on a little secret. My dear colleague Rob, who you met earlier, my Jersey boy, who I
Yes,
believe is your biggest fan. He told me that he shared that he thought that was the most exciting thing
yeah,
that you had done the
it was so
Lorax
much
in
fun.
5 languages. So,
It was so much fun
oh,
because
that's incredible.
yeah, it took forever, but it was a lot of fun. There would be times when I was doing like in the middle of the, you know, one of them doesn't matter any of the I don't speak I speak a little Italian, but that was it. But I take a break in the middle of it and say, Danny, what are you doing? Would you? It's like climbing Mount Everest, and you're going to try to be, these poor people are going to have to listen to you in their language.
I think that was one of the fun things freedom writers discovered. We've been to all 50 states and about 2 dozen countries, and how freedom writers has been dubbed in multiple languages. And we a group of freedom writers went to the Middle East, and we were in Israel, and then we went into the Palestinian territories. And there was this beautiful Palestinian girl. She had a bootleg copy of the film, and
Mm,
she had seen it 27 times, and she knew
wow.
every single word of the film.
Beautiful.
And I just love that films and television can go into every corner and every continent.
Yeah, it makes you feel good that you have an effect, some kind of like smile you could bring to somebody's face, who or let them think about something other than what's what I loved about the movies when I was a kid. I go into that dark room and just everything would just dissolve into like whatever I had very eclectic. I'd go every week in Asbury. Movie would change on a Wednesday, and then they'd move it around. We had a couple movie theaters in town, and it was a very fortunate thing. And we also had a place that showed international titles too. There was a little place that showed, Italian neorealistic. You got to see De Sica, and you got to see Bergman, and you got to see Antonioni, and it was really a gift down the shore. Can you imagine in this little 1 mile square town on the Jersey Shore? All these movies came, whether they were comedies, with Jerry Lewis, or whether they were, you know, Peter Lorre, Humphrey Bogart, or whether they were romantic, you know, movies, whatever they were. And my sisters also were very instrumental, and they were older, and they took me around, dragged me to see if there was a movie star coming to the shore. They were just like crazy. They'd drag me around, take a bus downtown, and go see if they could get John Derek to sign their somebody like that.
But I love that about you. You've not lost that element. And I think that's why so many of the kids we're working with now are excited to meet you, because you in their eyes you're big time, but you never forgot that kid from Jersey. I think
Mhm.
that's so indicative of who you are, and the friendships that you keep. I know that you and Tony Danza, who's a dear friend of the Freedom Rider family,
Yeah, yeah.
met in 1978. And just today he said, Tony is hipper. I'm sorry, Danny is hipper than you think he is. I love him. He's the man, and
No.
I miss him.
Yeah,
That's a friendship that goes
Tony and
to
I,
1978.
yeah, yeah, Tony. Yeah, it's very important. The entire That's the other great thing about it. If you can keep that, because the entire taxi cast is very, very close. We do this. We've done this a couple times during the pandemic. It's COVID horror nightmare. We've done this where we have little get-togethers like for an afternoon and
Wow.
just chat.
Well, we have established every Thursday night at 6 p.m. We do a 2-hour Freedom Rider Zoom, and it literally is 2 hours, and it's hysterical. Nobody wants to leave. So I love that the
Good.
Freedom Riders are still willing and able to gather and be silly and to do good. So I want to show you another clip that I'm really proud
Okay.
of, and it's paying homage to you. Our story would not have made its way to the film if it wasn't for your team. You were the executive producer with, I'd like to believe, the best writer, Richard LaGravenese,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
an incredible cast and crew. But what I loved, and many of them are watching today, I know that April Hernandez is watching, and she was so inspired by being in this movie that you produced that she is now an author herself and is going to release a book in less than 2 weeks. And when she asked me to write the forward for her book, I just burst into tears. How could I not write the forward to her book when she brought our book to life by playing Ava in the film? But what you were able to do, I know that we followed Aaron Brockovich. So I was always dubbed as like the other Aaron, like the second Aaron, after you guys won Academy Awards at all. Was to make sure that we felt comfortable with the script and the casting. So there's a clip I want to show you that we were able to create to use during the pandemic, where the scene was so realistic that you guys were able to recreate. And it was this beautiful moment of the how and the why, this catalyst, this spark of this horrific note being passed. I intercept the note and I lost it, and tried to teach my kids about inhumanity, to be humane. And that led my students to go to the Museum of Tolerance, to meet Holocaust survivors. And your dear friend, Fred Spector's daughter is Renee Firestone's granddaughter, who is a Holocaust survivor who got to play herself in this very film. So what I'd love to do is I want to show you my original Freedom Rider, Carlos, who I call son, paying homage to our movie and that moment and how perfectly detailed you and your team were able to get it.
Being a Mexican American, growing up in Long Beach, and there was a lot of gang violence. Hispanics sticking with Hispanics, blacks with blacks, Asians with Asians. Especially around that time, there was a lot of problems with everyone against the Hispanics, all the gangs against the Hispanics. I wasn't a gang member, I used to be a tagger. I just will stick to my own. One of my favorite scenes is actually, there was an incident that happened in the classroom. There was a paper that was being passed around, and it turned out that that picture was making fun of Sherrod. I was like, wow, he's gonna come back with a kind of comeback or something, but he was actually pretty hurt.
What is that?
That's when Ms. G actually took the paper and saw it, and she started talking to us about racism and what the Nazis did in World War II.
They'd print pictures like this in the newspapers. Jewish people with big, long noses. Blacks with big, fat lips. They'd also publish scientific evidence that proved Jews and blacks were the lowest form of human species. In fact, life would be a whole lot better if they were all dead. That's how a Holocaust happens.
That's when the big question came up. That's when I raised my hand and I asked her, what is that? What is the Holocaust? She asked everyone.
Raise your hand if you know what the Holocaust is.
That scene right there, it took me back in time. And I was just remembering sitting there watching Ms. G after that incident happened in real life that I lived it. It changed my ways of thinking towards other races. It made me realize that we all get cut, we all bleed the same color. If that movie can help other kids, if it can make other teachers better, it makes me feel great. It's an honor being part of this. Honestly, I wouldn't change it for anything in this world.
Thank you. You did that for us. You did that for us. And this beautiful boy, I met him as a teenager, and he had been abandoned. And that does something to a kid. You know, it breaks you. And all these years later, I get to be called Mama G.
Yeah. Well,
so you
important.
saw something in us that maybe we didn't even see in ourselves, and got a green light to have a movie made with dignity. And during this pandemic, it was like trending, you know, it was, and kids were watching it. And your darling friend, about 6 weeks ago, Tony, on a Sunday, Tony Danza sent me a text, and he said, "E, the New York Times just ran a story about Breonna Taylor. And the last thing that Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, did was watch the Freedom Rider movie." And I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
So suddenly I get this text from Danny. I rush out and buy the New York Times. And sure enough, and it's been surreal knowing that there's, you know, that we're in people's homes on the best of times, and for Breonna Taylor under the worst of times. And one of the Freedom Riders, Narada, sent me the body cam from that night. And it's so surreal, Danny. They walk into Breonna Taylor's bedroom.
I think
and our film is on her television.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I'll send it to you. It's just, it's surreal, you know, and it's this very joyous scene. So I tell you that because whenever Freedom Riders have had a pause where things aren't right, we've been able to reach out to you. And I want to share with the audience something that you did that was amazing. You know, when our book first came out, it was not censored, and it was, you know, has taboos and bad words, and that's why kids love it. And there was a group in Michigan, the Grand Dragon of the KKK himself, stormed into a school in Howell, Michigan, and removed our book from the hands of teenagers. Sent the book to the FBI and said that it was pornography. And it was this group of kids who wrote to us like a message in a bottle. And we went to Michigan. And I think about Gretchen Whitmer, their governor now, who's had, you know, this threat on her life, and these crazy white supremacists who wanted to ban our book all those years ago, and how it still often gets banned. What we found out, though, is the best way to get a kid to read a book is to try to ban it, apparently. But there was a teacher, this is where you come in. There was a teacher that had come to our institute from Indiana, outside of Indianapolis. She got fired up. We took her to Paramount Studios to see the film at the Sherry Lansing Theater. And she went home and had a fundraiser. And she raised money for every single one of her students to get their own copy of the Freedom Riders Diary. And a very conservative school board member stormed into their class and took the books away from the kids. And as you remember, it became a court case. It was in Newsweek, it was on CNN. And I reached out to you, and you donated money directly to her to fight the good fight. She lost her job over our book, and you, as an advocate, donated for her dignity and for her respect. And she was reinstated. And I don't know if you know what that does to a teacher, to know that Danny DeVito paid my rent, put food on my table, allowed me to fight a good fight, because we don't believe in censorship or banning books. So you became this like superhero to us, because you took the time to say, I want to do something for her. And I don't even know if you understand how much that meant to me and to the Freedom Riders and all the teachers we serve. Thank you for that.
Well, again, uh, my good graces showered down on me when I am given the opportunity.
Mm. So I think that we should pay it forward to you. I think the Freedom Riders learned a lot from you, and what you didn't want anyone to know was you. I think that was also this loving gift that I'm always a teacher. I see my kids every day, and I was like, Danny did this, but shh, don't tell anybody. So when the pandemic hit, there was this beautiful group of kids in Hollywood who would hear me talk every day about these foster kids we were trying to help, who didn't have computers, who didn't have Wi-Fi, who were falling behind. And there was 18 of them. And the number 18 is very symbolic in Jewish culture. It means time, life. And so this group of kids, along with Freedom Riders and teachers, got 18 computers for 18 kids in need. And they said, like Danny, we don't believe in handouts. It's a handout. And we're going to give time, and we're going to give talent, and we're going to give technology. And we're gonna catch these kids up. And for 6 months, my fabulous family has been catching these kids up. And I think it's because of people like you who do the right thing without the accolades or the praise. It's just because it's on your heart to do so.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So what I'd love for you to do is, for those kids who are watching, excited that you might know their name, a Nevaeh, beautiful Nevaeh. She breaks my heart every day.
Beautiful name, Nevaeh.
And she's a beautiful girl. And this year we get to be her holiday, her first holiday where she gets something new, something that's hers. We told her we're going to be her Santa. So if Nevaeh is watching, or sweet little Howard is watching, or any of these cute kids who get some time, some talent, and technology, you could have been that kid years ago. What would you tell them about persevering?
Well, I mean, I think that it's applying yourself and being positive and being considerate, and it's best when you care for others. It's best you've got to care for yourself. You have to care for yourself as well. But it's like always good to respect other people's space. It's always good to respect other people and embrace them as your brother and sister, because that's the way we're going to get through everything. That's the way we're going to make it and make this world. It is a beautiful place. If you look around, there are a lot of crazy things that go on, but with each other, compassion, kindness. Kindness is big, Also, it's really interesting, the whole thing of freedom. Like, I was thinking about the kids in that classroom and people coming and taking a book out of their hand. It's a thing. You have to have the freedom to do things. You have to allow everybody to be free.
Danny, I'd love to share a little anecdote. When I flew back to Indiana to go directly to that court case, and it was surreal. There's like a judge and a jury, and there was this boy waiting outside. I think he was going to be one of the witnesses, and his hair was kind of sticking up, and I wanted to wet my hand and like put his hair down. And he was one of her students. And he was going to testify, and you'll never believe it. So this is the old copy of our book. We've since had a 20th anniversary, and he's holding onto this book like it is the most prized possession. And he gets in the witness stand, and they're badgering this poor kid about why he did not give his book back when it was demanded. And I swear to God, he opens the book, and on the front cover, he had just written his name. He had written his name in the book. And he said, because it's mine.
Mhm.
Because it's mine. Look, my name is right there.
Mhm.
And then he said, I've never had a book before.
Mm.
And I think about that when you give, even if it's just a book or it's as you did with Connie, you gave her livelihood and her ability to continue to teach. That boy was so brave to sit in front of all of those adults and be defiant and not give up his book because it was mine.
And that's a hard thing to do in the middle of a courtroom or anywhere, to
Yeah.
stand up for yourself.
We might need you again. We have a parent who called the school district in Bakersfield and said that our book, our little book that could, the Freedom Writers Diary, is softcore porn. And our book is banned again. And I think it's like making us feel really feisty. Like we want to go and protest. Love the challenge. I'm going to wait till after the election because I'm going to vote like my life depends on it. But after that, I'm going to Bakersfield. We got a little hustle going on.
You go tell them what's what.
Tell them what's what.
Yeah.
In our last few minutes together, one of the things that I would love for you to do with this audience today, and it's very eclectic. It's teachers in every corner of the globe.
Very, very important teachers.
Yes, and all these beautiful
think about it.
students.
Education. Think about it. You know what we need to do. We talk about. Hey, by the way, I have a question for you. Do you know how big the rainforest is?
I do not.
It's 1.4 billion acres. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't either till the other day. It's amazing. Little things like that. When I think of the rainforest, I think of like, this patch of green that everybody shows on television every once in a while when there's a fire or when there's something, God, forbid, you don't want things to happen. But did you know that it was 1.4 billion acres? If somebody's going to write in and tell you Danny's out of his mind, but but I think I'm really educating you right now.
And I think that's what's great about all of us. We all could be a teacher and we can all be a student.
It's so much fun to do that, though, isn't it?
It is so much
It's so
fun.
much fun when you say, like, when you know something, it's true, and then you go, "Hey, did you know that?" I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing.
Well, our hope is that you
future.
are going to stay in our family forever.
Oh yeah,
And every time there is a crisis or existential situation that you can speed dial, you
dial me up.
We're going to dial you. We're going to love you up. I want those hugs. But I want to end with speaking directly to those teachers and those students and those parents, or anybody who has appreciated the Freedom Writers story, how important it is to pick up that book for a kid, to donate so we can keep giving great curriculum to kids, to do something that is bigger than themselves.
You know that you're special. I mean, you know that.
No, I mean, that's Steve Grewell coming through you. You are channeling my dad right now, I think.
You are really special. No, because you're giving always, and all the teachers out there who are giving, because that's needed. And all the kids too. The kids have to know this, that you can give too. You can give back. Your teacher gives you information or things or guides you through something. And then you can help a friend. You can help somebody else. That's the whole idea about giving back, paying it forward, giving it back, whatever you want to call it. It's all about like being, compassionate, kind to each other, helping everybody along. It's the whole thing about, you see the person on the corner who's trying to get across the street and they're dodgy about the light. You wait for the light to change and then you go give them a hand down the curb. It's as old as time. You always hear that story about somebody helping somebody do something. That's the same thing with it. That's what you can do. You're empowered to do that. You can do that. That's a great thing.
And I love that it's the you for all of us.
Yeah.
It's the collective you and the collective
That's right. We.
That beautiful boy you saw in that video talking about raising his hand and asking. A month ago, we had a similar gathering, a similar Freedom Forum with Patrick Dempsey, who played my husband in the Freedom Riders.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, every boy wants to beat him up.
Handsome.
Every boy does not like that character.
Yeah.
They like him now because he's very pretty. But they didn't like him then.
He's a good actor. He's
a great actor. And while we were in this space, this amazing space, that boy is no longer a boy, he's a man, and he's a baller. And when he made that video for the kids, for context, I drive a 2007 Prius. Carlos showed up in a brand new BMW.
Oh, really?
That little video. I mean, he's a baller. And my sweet
Prius gets better gas mileage.
I know,
absolutely. We're try to like leave the oil in the ground.
I'm not going anywhere these days. But Carlos was watching this Freedom Forum, and he donated probably more than I made an entire month my first year of teaching. It knocked me out.
Nice.
Like my kid that used to be on free and reduced lunch is like, I believe in something bigger. So I don't know why I'm so weepy. I'm going to blame it on you.
I don't know. We're emotional. We have an emotional connection, and we always have. It's always been that way.
You make us laugh.
And I love it. I think it's great. I was really happy to hear from you when you asked me to be here today, and it's really a pleasure. I think it's a really important thing. We gotta, we gotta elbow hug each other right now. That's the thing. But
well, my wish for all of you, I'm a teacher, so I can give homework assignments. My homework assignment for everyone is to go find your favorite Danny DeVito movie or television show and watch it with somebody. Now you have these great, anecdotes. He's name dropping people like Michael Douglas and Tony Danza. These are his buddies who desperately love him. So that's my homework assignment, is to watch. Now that you've got inside information, my homework assignment is to give of yourself and give to a cause you believe in. Hopefully it's our cause and what we're doing. My hope is that you hold someone a little closer tonight and a little dear, and that you thank our incredible guest who believed in us then to allow this little film to change our lives and still believes in us now. So, Danny, thank you for spending a treasured hour with us.
So happy to be here. It's really a pleasure.
Thank you for the tears. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for the laughter.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. We'll see you soon, and can't wait to get that hug.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Okay.